Throughout the month of November, we celebrate, in many ways, we celebrate death. It's kind of a weird thing to celebrate, but we look at the first day of November, on November 1st, we call it All Saints' Day. And the only way you can become a saint is by dying. And then, of course, entering into eternal life. The second day of November, we look to All Souls' Day. All of those who have gone before us, all those who have died and are awaiting their entry into eternal life, particularly in purgatory, waiting for them, waiting for us to pray for them. But throughout the month of November, we also are entering into the final days of the liturgical year, the final days of, in a sense, kind of like in December, we're waiting for the new year to begin on January. But in the church, we are waiting for the new year to begin on the first Sunday of Advent. And so we're looking towards the end of time, and we're looking towards the last things. And of course, the last things being death, judgment, heaven, and hell. And so all of our gospel readings on a daily Mass and at Sunday Mass are kind of ordered towards this end, looking towards what it will be like at the end of our lives. Some of the readings make reference to the end of time, make to the end of the world, but in a particular way, we want to talk about what's going to matter to us more presently is the end of our time on earth. And so today's gospel, normally, there is a reflection that speaks about the gifts that God has given us. There's this unfortunate translation of calling a talent, which is actually a weighty sum, a heavy sum of money, which in Hebrew language, then is translated into a talent, which when we think of talent, it's the gifts that we have been given and the talents that we perform in the world. And so there's this unfortunate distinguishing, or this unfortunate relationship. In our gospel today, we think of the gifts that God has given us. Which, yes, we can interpret it that way, but I think there's a more important interpretation in the sense of the greatest gift that God bestows upon us is actually the gift of the church, the gift of the sacraments, and the gift of eternal life that is given to us beginning at our baptism. But I also want to offer a reflection from a Father Robert Schoenstein, who is a biblical scholar at Mundelein Seminary. And at Mundelein Seminary, as he does exegesis, which is an explanation of the Gospels, he offers this description of our Gospel today. And I think this is probably a better interpretation. And you'll find out why here in just a second. A talent in ancient times was a measure of something particularly weighty. And when we hear it used in the scriptures, it's usually referring to a sum of money. But it was often used in reference to gold or silver. A single talent might represent as much as 50 pounds of precious metal. So if you could imagine 50 pounds of gold or silver. And so it was something that can't be carried in your pockets. It's not like it's just loose change hanging out. We might make a comparison between a talent and a unit of gold at Fort Knox. But what we might miss from our gospel today, because we don't have the interpretation of the Hebrew scriptures in our minds, and we're not constantly thinking about it as the Hebrews would have thought about it. But what we would miss is that there is a connection to this weightiness of a talent and the heaviness of the kavod of Yahweh. This is the connection that the Jews would have immediately made in our parable today. A large 10 talents or 5 talents is a heavy sum of gold, of precious metal. And so what the ancient Jewish reader would have heard is, this is a large sum of kavod. And the largest kavod of Yahweh is actually the mercy seat. The mercy seat is what sits upon the top of the Ark of the Covenant, between the two cherubim, and it's the place that the Hebrew people would go in order to offer sacrifice. They'd offer not on the ark itself, but before the ark. And it was the place, the dwelling place of God. Now this word kavod is translated into Greek as doxa, or into Latin as gloria, which have a connotation of luminosity or of brightness. When we think of gloria, when we think of glory, that's gloria is translated to glory, we think of this brightness usually. But what the Jews would have seen was the Holy of Holies in the temple. Therefore, what was heaviest, what was most glorious of everything, what was most expensive, and what was the best of everything was the mercy of God that existed on the mercy seat in the Holy of Holies. It is infinite, and it's an inexhaustible abundance in the temple of God. So if we think about it in this way, when we think of the talents being heavy compared to the kavod of God, the mercy of God, or the love of God, and we are given 5 talents, which if we were to compare that to the 50 pounds, that's a lot. I don't do math. You can figure that out. But mercy is always directed to the other person. And so if we are given 5 talents of this kavod and it's measured against the kavod of God, if we are given the 5 talents, it's measured against the kavod of God, that means that we have been given this heaviness, this weight upon us to give it away, to in a sense invest it. So if we are given the love and the mercy of God, and we are given 5 talents of it, a weighty sum, a heaviness compared to the kavod or compared to the mercy seat of God, we are meant to do something with it. We're not meant to keep it to ourselves. In light of this, the gospel makes more sense. If God gives us 1 talent, if God gives us His mercy and His love, and all we do is we keep it to ourselves, or we bury it, or we don't do anything with it, or we squander it, as the prodigal son does in Luke 15, what happens to us? This would be the reason that the Master gets so angry in our gospel today. This would be the reason that the Master says, "You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I was demanding and you did nothing about it. You were given so much mercy, you were given so much of this love, and you buried it. You kept it to yourself. You did nothing with it. You didn't invest it." In the divine, it works opposite of the world. In the divine, the more that we have, the more that we have to give it away. The more love that we have, if we want to get even more love, we have to be willing to give it away. And if we give it away, then we receive. This is why we say in the Our Father, forgive us this day our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We are only forgiven in the amount that we forgive. We can only be loved in the amount that we are willing to love. And so if we are given these talents, we are meant to give them away. In a sense, we invest the mercy that God has given us. We invest the love that God has given us so that then we can receive. I find this explanation of the gospel today to be life-changing. Because if we merely think of it as these things that God has given us, if I have this great gift of singing, for instance, and I don't use it, and then God gets angry with me, that doesn't seem quite right. I can understand why God would be upset. He's given me this great gift and I don't use it. I understand that. But what is more important than this great gift that God has given me in singing or whatever? But the greatest gift of all is His mercy and His love. And we don't give that away. We don't go into the world and show His mercy and show His love. That would be why there is anger on the Master's part. In fact, when we speak of the end times, we will be judged according to our charity. This is what the Scriptures tell us. We will be judged on the way in which we love. And if we don't love, if we hold resentment in our heart, if we are unforgiving, if we never give ourselves away in love, or if we are hard and cold to people, our family, we will not receive the love of God. We can't. We don't make room for it. The only way that we can make room for the love and the mercy of God is to give it away. The more that we love, the more that we show mercy, the more that we can receive. So when we meditate upon our end times, when we meditate upon our personal end, which is what November is about, let's think about that. Let's think about how we are showing mercy to those around us. Let us think about how we are showing love to those around us. And let's compare ourselves to the love that God has for us and the mercy that God shows us. Because as we are created in His image and likeness, we are meant to give mercy and love like He does. Not to hold it to ourselves. But we are meant to be a witness and a sign of His mercy and His love in the world. And if we fail to do that, if we fail to give those away, we will not be made worthy for eternal life. That is what the gospel is all about today. That is what we need to focus on. And we need to focus on the true understanding of love and mercy. That doesn't mean that we look past people's faults. That doesn't mean that God looks past our faults. When He shows us mercy in the confessional, we have to be repentant. We have to be willing to change, or else we can't receive His forgiveness. When we show mercy, there's an expectation that when we show that mercy to someone, that there will be change in their lives. When we love someone, we pour ourselves out so much that it brings about suffering. The example of love in our lives is Christ on the cross. We will be crucified for loving. That's the model. That's the example. Love does not accept things that are contrary to the truth. Love corrects, but love pulls people in as well. Love brings people back. Mercy is what brings people to God. We are meant to be God's love and mercy in the world.